25 years ago today the federal government changed its rules to launch a sniper attack on off-grid family. 25 years ago today, the FBI performed a deadly siege on the private property of Randy Weaver and his family at Ruby Ridge. By Claire Burnish, August 21, 2017. Randall and Vicki Weaver and their children wanted nothing more than to be left to live an isolated life in peace in their cabin enclave on a northern Idaho mountaintop called Ruby Ridge. Untrusting of the federal government and of the belief society had taken an insurmountable turn for the worse, the Weavers, as many residents in the remote and breathtaking area, taught their children to be self-sufficient and defend themselves with firearms from unwanted intrusions onto the family's property. But the Weavers' seemingly idyllic life came to an appallingly violent end over several hours from August 21 to 22, 1992, in a horrendously botched federal raid that would also profoundly alter perceptions about the U.S. government in the minds of even ordinary Americans. Often afterward reported to be white supremacists, the Weavers considered themselves race separatists only and intended no harm against others beyond that belief, though their stance often included the company of people with a more vehement ideology. Regardless of the Weavers' beliefs, the account of what federal agents perpetrated against the family under the premise of effecting law enforcement action implores Americans of every race to consider the telling outcome of untrammeled government power run amok. In 1989, Randy Weaver came under the scrutiny of federal agents intent on infiltrating sometimes violent white supremacist organizations like the Aryan Nations and eventually wound up charged for selling 2 illegal sawed-off shotguns to an undercover agent with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, now, also, explosives, ATF. Weaver, notably, claimed he had been set up, thus flatly refusing the government's offer to drop the charges if he would turn informant, feeding the feds information about various Aryan Nations members, and was indicted in December the following year. Though Weaver's insistence about the setup leaves his failure to show up for a scheduled court date in February 1991 an altogether open question, a clerical error marking that court date for March didn't prevent authorities from issuing a warrant for his arrest. Advertisement. Read more. No justice for Indian grandfather left paralyzed by Alabama cop mistrial declared. Knowing the Weavers possessed a relative arsenal which Randall, Vicki, and their children were well trained how to use, agents weren't entirely sure how to carry out the warrant and so began intense surveillance of the family's mountain home while carefully formulating a plan of action. During this period, Vicki reportedly penned several darkly but vaguely threatening letters to federal agents, containing phrases such as "the tyrant's blood will flow." Considering the family originally relocated to their outpost over mistrust of the government coupled with Randall's claims concerning the charges which ultimately generated the warrant, Vicki's language is understandable. Remember, whatever narrative about dangerous white separatists federal officials proffered about the Weaver family, Randall had only sold under questionable circumstances 2 sawed-off shotguns to a federal agent, and his failure to appear in court, for all intents and purposes, was the fault of the court clerk's ultimately egregious error. All in all, an isolationist family on a remote mountain hardly posed an imminent threat to anyone. Nonetheless, federal marshals set in motion a plan in August 1992 that would send shockwaves across the country and around the world for its deadly ineptitude and wholly disproportionate use of force. On August 21, marshals surprised Randall, his 14-year-old son Sammy, friend of the family Kevin Harrison, and the Weavers' family dog, Stryker, on a road near the family's property. Though some of what happened next remains a matter of conjecture, the events mark a disturbing turn in the use of force for the purposes of an otherwise relatively innocuous warrant. A fully camouflage-clad marshal shot and killed Stryker, prompting Sammy to return fire at the group of marshals. Shots then rang out from both sides. In the end, both Sammy and U.S. Marshal Michael Deegan lay dead. After the brief gun battle, Weaver and Harrison retreated to Ruby Ridge and marshals regrouped, bringing in FBI agents and setting up a sniper to watch movements on the property. One of the most contentious aspects of following events concerned an abhorrently arbitrary relaxing of the FBI's rules of engagement to handle the case. Read more. Police commander still free after he raped female cop and gave her an STD. Larry Potts headed the FBI's criminal division and oversaw the deployment of the agency's hostage rescue team to break the standoff at Ruby Ridge, but in doing so, loosely nullified long-standing rules of engagement preventing agents from firing in anything other than self-defense. In doing so, Potts created a monstrously rogue agency capable of firing at will, and the results were expectedly disastrous. Agents were ordered to shoot any armed man on sight on the Weavers' private property, and when Randall appeared with a weapon alongside his 16-year-old daughter Sarah Ann Harris, FBI sniper Lon Horiuchi opened fire, hitting Weaver in the arm. Weaver, Harris, and Sarah sprinted back to the safety of the cabin, but another shot from Horiuchi hit Vicky in the head, killing her as she clutched the couple's 10-month-old daughter in her arms, but the bullet passed through her and also wounded Harris. An incredibly tense 11-day standoff ensued, as the terrified survivors holed up in the Ruby Ridge home, but ended when mediators convinced Randall to turn himself in. Horiuchi later claimed he had not been aware Vicky stood in the doorway when he fired the fatal shot. Though he was charged in 1997 with involuntary manslaughter for the killing of Vicky Weaver, a federal judge dismissed the charges the following year under the controversial alleged immunity of federal officers from state prosecution. In 2001, a federal appeals court overruled that claim to immunity, stating federal officials who violate the U.S. Constitution can, indeed, be held accountable at the state level, but the Idaho prosecutor never pursued the manslaughter charge. Randall and Harris both faced murder charges for the death of the federal marshal, but in a surprising move by an Idaho jury, all charges against them were dropped, save the original failure to appear charge against Weaver that generated the fateful warrant. Read more. Texas cop arrested, charged with repeatedly raping 13-year-old girl. Surviving members of the Weaver family filed a wrongful death lawsuit, and in 1995, the patriarch received $100,000 and three of his daughters, $1 million each. To this day, the grievous abuse of power fuels doubt in segments of the public about federal agencies' ability to restrain itself in the use of unnecessary force disproportionate to putative threats. Though the enormity of consequences of Ruby Ridge certainly echoed far into the future, the events have unfortunately sometimes been clouded by the Weaver family's controversial ideologies. But those beliefs, as the families of countless other victims of a growing epidemic of state violence can attest, are of little consequence when the government acts with reckless impunity against a wide range of people from grossly different backgrounds. Agents participating in and overseeing the siege of Ruby Ridge forced a sweeping internal investigation and concurrent re-evaluation of policy, particularly due to the removal of imperative rules of engagement meant to protect civilians from the exact massacre that took place there. And as is widely known, when the government receives the green light to abandon strictures protecting the public one time, it's virtually guaranteed to happen again. As testament to this, the deadly and terroristic siege in Waco, Texas, by federal agents occurred shortly after the incident at Ruby Ridge. On the 20th anniversary of her mother's and brother's murder by agents of the government, Sarah Weaver poignantly recalled the harrowing details of her experience in an interview with the Associated Press, though she noted her father refuses to do the same. Losing her mother, who was indeed unarmed when she was killed, has been the most difficult aspect for Sarah to come to terms with. "We miss her terribly," Sarah lamented. "It never goes away." Despite the unprecedented mishandling, the payout to the surviving Weaver family, and the storm of debate and controversy ensuing from the incident at Ruby Ridge, the government has never fully admitted any wrongdoing in the case.
When we didn't get along that great.
You shed any light for this subcommittee on why the Alcohol, Firearms, and Tobacco Unit made such an extended effort to bring you into the informant status?
Actually, I can only speculate on that. We discussed that a little bit before. You'd have to ask Mr. Byerly and this Gus Magisano, or whatever his real name is, why. Because from what I heard later, they wanted me to infiltrate, inform on this certain person that I didn't know very well, but whenever we ran into each other at the Aryan Nations meetings, he would end up starting an argument with me, usually over religious issues, etc. So I couldn't figure out, to this day, it doesn't make any sense to me why they wanted me to try to go buddy up this guy and, when we didn't get along that great anyway.
And what specifically did alcohol, firearms, and tobacco do to try to bring you into their informant network?
Well,
start, if you will, and briefly outline the series of events which led to the sale of the sawed-off shotguns for which you were indicted and tried, and as the court records show, you were acquitted after having made a defense of entrapment, which is a defense of law which exonerates an individual for conduct if the ideas are planted and instigated by law enforcement officials. But exactly what did happen factually with respect to the initial contacts and what you did as to the sale of those sawed-off shotguns?
What's that? Okay. When the very first meeting that I went to at Aryan Nations was in 1986, if I remember right, and I was introduced to this Gus Magisano by another man, and he we became acquainted, and he, for the next 3 years, you might say, befriended me. Is that the right way to say it? Acted as though he was my friend, and made contact with me several times and tried to talk me into doing illegal acts.
What illegal acts did he try to talk you into doing?
Well, specifically altering guns. He claimed to be a gun runner, making big bucks, had good business going. And I shied away from him all the time. I kept shying away from him, and about 3 years later, he caught me in a weak moment when I needed some money. And by this time, I just, biggest mistake of my life, went ahead and did it. I sold him 2 guns. He showed me what he wanted me to do with them, and I said, yeah, I can do that. He offered me more money than has ever come out in testimony. But
how much money did he offer you?
He offered me $700 for 2 shotguns, which I had $250 in the guns, and I was going to make good profit. But even if I wouldn't have made that much profit, just to sell the guns, I'd have took it anyway, because I needed, $700 was a lot of money out there at that time.
And after you sold him the sawed-off shotguns, what happened next?
I heard through the grapevine that this guy was an undercover agent or a federal agent, and I didn't know if I could believe the source that came from, but then I became real leery and wary. I had one more meeting with the guy, and I asked him about it, and he denied it vehemently. But after that, apparently he didn't trust me, and I didn't trust him anymore, and I had no more contact with him. Approximately 6 months later, I was approached by 2 ATF agents, Mr. Herb Byerly and Mr. Steve Gunderson. They approached me. They were in civilian clothes, and a Forest Service truck came up. Basically what they said was that we're going to take you to court on 6 or 7 firearms violations if you don't join our team.
And did they amplify as to what they meant by, quote, joining our team?
I knew, and they knew I knew what they meant when I said...
What was your understanding as to what they meant by joining their team?
To go undercover for them.
Why were they so anxious to have you go undercover?
I can only speculate. You mean why they would want me to, or why they have people do it? I mean...
Well, either way, as you have described it, and as we will have a further factual basis, the Alcohol, Firearms, and Tobacco Unit went to very elaborate procedures to get you to be an informant. And one of the things that this subcommittee wants to find out is what the purpose of that is and what Alcohol, Firearms, and Tobacco are really doing in the use of the kind of resources, and we will get into that in some substantial detail, to have these prolonged contacts and then to have the sale of sawed-off shotguns and what turns out to be under a judicial decision to have been entrapment and improper law enforcement activities. But why target Randall Weaver in Boundary County with this kind of an elaborate process? What are they looking for as you understand it?
I can only speculate as that, sir. I wish they'd tell me, to be honest with you. I hope that comes out sometime. I believe that undercover agents like Gus Magisano don't have a lot of courage, and he knew that, you know, he'd go pick on someone like me. He knows that I'm not going to come back and shoot his head off. He wasn't afraid of me.
Well, all right, moving ahead, Mr. Weaver, to a central part of this entire matter. As your statement outlines, and as we will go into greater detail, you were subsequently arrested, and there was an elaborate procedure for your arrest where they pretended to have a breakdown on the road, and when you were trying to help them, they took you into custody, which showed concern of theirs as to using that elaborate ruse instead of simply coming and serving a warrant of arrest. And we will try to find out what it was for law enforcement to undertake that kind of an unusual procedure. And then you did not respond to the process as you have described it. And it is a fairly common occurrence for people. It isn't unusual not to respond to a summons. When I was district attorney of Philadelphia, we had thousands outstanding, and we try to serve them, and it's important for people to respond. But that raises the next question as to why, in this context, on this kind of a charge, did the law enforcement of the federal agencies mount such a substantial law enforcement effort, people coming to your home to take you into custody? That is a central question which this subcommittee will pursue in some depth. And obviously the real answers will have to come from alcohol, firearms, and tobacco as to why they proceeded as they did, and from the FBI as to why it proceeded as it did. But I think it is important for you to tell this subcommittee, to the extent you can, even though it is speculation, why Mr. Weaver was the subject of this kind of law enforcement activity. That's the end of my time, Mr. Weaver. You're on your own time now.
Why they came after me, like the ATF even to start with, the way they did, you know, have you ever seen the bumper sticker, "They will take my guns away from me when they pry it out of my cold dead fingers"? I had one of those on at least one rig when I was up there, which a lot of gun advocates put on their bumper stickers. Most gun advocates out there, law-abiding citizens, don't really mean what that sticker says. If they believe that bumper sticker, and that's the way I was thinking mentally, then I can understand why they arrested me the way they did, maybe. But as to why they targeted me and treated me the way they did, I would really like to find that out myself. I'd love to hear that.
Stay tuned.
Hey Charlotte County, this is Charlotte County COPWATCH, and I found that I had to make a change this ending on my videos, letting you know about the channel and fair use laws, you know, how we can report on other people's reporting and how it's good, how it's bad, etc. But you guys can look it up yourself. It is legal. It's in there. But like I've told you before, that I've been cut off from making money on YouTube for 4 years. It's really weird, bizarre, but They cut the money off, but they said you can keep the channel, and now YouTube makes all the money. And if you get bored, plug it into Social Blade website, and you'll see that they are making a huge amount off the site. Right now it's at 63 million views, 53,000 subscribers, almost 3 million views a month. You know, trying to wake people up, and I make nothing. In fact, I got a customer that's ex-congressman. He said if I could ever find a lawyer, sue YouTube on it. But because this is nuts, 4 hours a day, and to save America. You know, but at the same time, it's worth it. Look at what our founding fathers did. They died for this country. So, but getting back to the money part, this is why I'm redoing the video. Is my dream of everyone giving $1, and it's going to be $53,000 a year, or if they did Patreon, which you know, can be monthly. That is not working. That'd be great if it did. Nothing is perfect. And I appreciate the people that do donate, you know, what they can on PayPal, and there again, I'm letting you guys know that is not much. Is, you know, monthly is, oh my god. So anyways, yes, you cannot live on it. It's very, very, very low amount. But the dollar things, I do appreciate that. But when I first said everybody give $1, that's not working. I'm just letting you guys know it's, yeah, that dream. Everybody gives $1. 53,000 subscribers, it's not working. So yes, if you can give more than that, you know, I appreciate it. Like I said, you know, I'm in a unique situation where, you know what, we're already debt free, and I'm not rich, but with the little business that we have, I am able to do what I am able to do 45 hours a day, you know, letting you guys know what's going on. In 4 years, I've did the whole thing myself. 12,000 videos on there. I literally get emails where people are like, holy crap, I never knew it was this bad. And it is this bad, and it's getting worse every day because we have the internet, we have cell phones, we have cameras everywhere now, and it's just disgusting what's going on. And then, as you guys know too, we got Trump, we got Jeff Sessions doing a war on drugs, and now he wants to go after the forfeiture laws again. It's just unfreaking real. So if you can give more than that dream of everybody giving $1, yeah, that old video, that's not working. They're not, they're just not. So anyways, if you can give more than that dream is not working. Hardly anybody is giving. There you go. So that's why I'm remaking the video. If you can give more than that would be great. And there again, like I said, the Patreon's there. There is some people on there that are starting to give, but there again, it's very, very low. And like I said, I don't want to get rich off of that. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing because, you know, it's still so stinking corrupt. It's not even funny. My court case that I'm going to be paying out of my pocket myself with Charlotte County's coming up. They illegally looked me up and then posted all my information on LEOAFFAIRS website. They basically doxed me, however you want to say that. I forget what the word is, and they outed me, man. And that information on that site went out to 500 sheriffs, deputies, people that work at the jail, etc., etc., etc. So, yeah, it is very, very scary, but we're going to do a federal case, 1983 case, violating freedom of speech. We have 17 cameras in the house now. We got 2 cameras in the car. I always carry a camera plus a cell phone. A lot of people are highly recommending I get a vest now. If I could, if the wife would let me, I would run for sheriff. We are trying to push the thing nationwide right now, where just to mix it up and to get the topics out there is register to run for sheriff, NPA, no party affiliation, as a write-in, and that is completely free, and you can participate in the elections. And there's a lot of stuff. We got a guy, James McLinnis in Pinellas County, Tampa, who almost won. He experienced the corruption himself. The story is unbelievable. Look him up. It's mind-blowing what they did. It pissed him off. He is very, very smart. He has way more money than I did. He ran for sheriff at the last 3 months last year in 2016 and almost won. He got all of the black vote. And the reason why he did that is because he ran in, I will not bust, we're in Florida, I will not bust anybody for weed anymore unless it's an ungodly huge amount, like pounds. And then he also ran in no more victimless crimes, no more of this freaking road pirate bull crap. And then he was going to cut the budget by 30%. And when you think about that, you can. If you stop the road pirates, you can get rid of a bunch of people. Gone. So, the wife has been saying, yes, I can, yes, I can't. So I don't know. We're trying to find somebody that can do it because I am busy doing this anyways. But, so I'm making a video, like I said, that $1 a month from everybody, you know, for 53,000 subscribers, that is not working. I'm just letting you guys know. Absolutely give way more than $1 a month. If you can, I appreciate anything. By the way, remember too, when you give that, PayPal takes like freaking 15 to 20%, so it's even worse than that. But, and there again, like I'm letting you guys know, it's way, what I get is very, very low. Appreciate it. But it is very, very low. Can't live on it. I'm just, you know, I'm working, and that's what I'm working on. And that court case is going to cost a buttload of money. That's federal court. Just the filing fees and the depositions that we're going to be doing with this corrupt cop. So there's another reason to give. We are going to be doing a deposition with this very corrupt. He was in a drug squad. He is a bad guy. He's on steroids. We heard steroids are rampant here. That's why their attitude is so bad. And we are going to get him on video, and it will be on YouTube. So that case alone is $5,000 just to bring it to court, and that's my money out of my pocket. So there's another reason to give, and give way more than $1 if you can. So keep that in mind. This is the new video, and I see, God, I talk a lot. It's already 7 minutes, but had to make it just to let you know that $1 a month from everybody is not working. They're not doing it. So if you can give more than that, please. So thanks. Keep it up. Share, like, subscribe, tell your friends, send me your videos on corruption, and I'll post it.